Greetings, dear ones. This is Saturday, June 4th. Excuse me. And it is a day late and an hour early from yesterday's regularly scheduled episode of Ancient Future Wisdom. And I do apologize. I had an emergency with my four-legged child. So glad to report everything is well. However, I was unable to meet my normally scheduled time. So those of you who are listening at a later point, I am glad that you were able to find it. And those who normally are attending, again, I apologize and hope to see you in a future event. Not only the Ancient Future Wisdom Fridays, but I will be doing a solstice event coming up in this month, later this month. And I will give you more information on that soon. And today is a very challenging subject title. It is surrounding prejudice and hierarchy and thingness. Now, I'm very aware it's not a real word, but it does describe a way of interacting and treating and looking at others in our world, be it other humans, other aspects of nature, other aspects of our planet and our galaxy. And quite to the contrary, everything is alive, everything carries a life force, everything has sole purpose in participating in this grand scheme, this adventure, this game that we are in. And to view anything as less than divine or having less value really sets things up for a hierarchy, which is constantly, of course, going to maintain separation excuse me, and polarity, but also it's very difficult to embrace and accept and incorporate and physicalize that which you do want if you are so strong in your efforts to push away and ignore or get rid of that which you do not want. For example, well, let me back up a little bit. Prejudice is an interesting word and comes from multiple levels of our being. We carry prejudices of our families of origin, how they have spoken about people or the earth, how they have practiced, whether it's their religious beliefs or political beliefs or philosophical. And that really entrains children of what their family believes is good or right and what is wrong, i.e. other people, other belief systems, etc. And it takes quite a bit of effort to be able to explore and know thyself well enough to be able to discern and decide what is right for you, what does feel aligned with your deeper knowing, your internal compass of what is right and what is wrong. And that internal compass is never going to steer you wrong. We come into this world knowing on a very, very deep basis, having nothing to do with the brain, what is right and wrong. We don't need commandments. We don't need laws, ultimately, because inside, if we're in tune with, in touch with, and feeling those parts of ourselves, knowing them and feeling them, then what does not feel good is generally what is harmful or detracts from another or takes from another or diminishes another. And there is a guideline or a guidance system that is within each and every one of us. Now, we can shut that down, we can distort it, we can ignore it, we can disguise it, but it is always there. And ultimately, we will feel those choices that we've made that do cause harm to another, to ourselves. Also, anything that takes from another, whether it's taking from the land, taking from other people, be it physical objects, or taking their freedom, taking their right to be, speak, do what they wish. And it's really, really challenging to believe that everyone can have this world the way they want it to be, and yet not infringe upon or dictate or determine another's way of living. But that is the beyond comprehension capacity of this. Some refer to it as a quantum field. My definition of, and my knowledge from the ancients and from other teachers of what the quantum really is, differs greatly, but suffice to say that that is a large enough concept to be able to realize that all the threads within this lattice work, this amazing web of consciousness that is creating our reality, and every different type of thread, every different color of thread, every different direction of thread goes into the magnificent tapestry, lattice work, web that makes up this planet Earth. And that's not even simply humans' desires. I've often described the Great Earth Council that I work with on a daily basis, and that I've come to know as a representative. Well, let me back up. Those of you who have seen the Star Wars movies, I believe, I always get them all confused, but there's two different movies. One where the scene is predominant and very apparent, and it is where there is a huge, the stadium is immeasurable. We don't have anything to begin to compare to its size. And in there is like a balcony or a boxes all the way, but they're curved. And when someone wants to speak, their box comes out of the stadium walls, and they're able to move around and speak to hundreds of thousands of people, or more. Hundreds of thousands of beings, forgive me. And that is very, very similar to what I refer to as the Great Earth Council, because there is a representative of every being that is involved in this Earth project. And that means everyone from fruit fly to the greatest mountains, to the stars in the sky, to each and every human being, to all the different animals on the planet, microbes. Everything that makes this up is part of that Earth Council. And there are representatives, just like there is in our American government. We have representatives standing in for thousands of people. In the UN, there are representatives of the entire country. And this is just a massively large, expanded version of that. And everyone has a vote. Every group of beings have a vote in this. And so what we're talking about is an acknowledgement of the beingness, acknowledgement of the divinity, if you will, the acknowledgement of the life force running through and in everything. And those are only the ones that I just mentioned are only those that are in the physical and visible. We also have, this is a conjunction of many different worlds and realms and kingdoms. Some see that as other planets. That's another way to view it. But there are a lot of beings involved in this particular project, which is why it is so key to not only the evolution of our species, but the evolution of the galaxy and the evolution of the universe itself. All connected and all going through a process of evolution right now. And this planet happens to be the microcosm. And you are here purposefully and with an absolute designed and knowing reason or projects, certain projects that you've come to experience, explore, accomplish. And we're moving out of that old way of being. And one of those old ways of being is these very strong prejudices. Prejudices based on religion, prejudices based on culture, prejudices based on gender, prejudices based on lifestyle, prejudices based on class, prejudice based on science versus even magic. So we have, and it was really interesting, again, when I do these Ancient Future Wisdom episodes, it is a confluence of so many different helpers, energetics, beings that are coming forth at this particular point in time. So I happened to, after the whole thing with my kitty yesterday, I ran into the city to go pick up something. And I went to a store that I've gone to frequently. And as I left, my car happened to be parked in front of a building that I had not seen before, or at least the front of looked very, very new. Bunch of balloons outside. It said Free Friday, so naturally I looked and to see what was going on, and it was the Museum of Science, the History Museum of Science that is recently open, was inaugurated not too long ago, and every first Friday of the month it is open to the public without charge, and you can go in and see some amazing exhibits. And it's very, very interesting. You know, the first floor was more about kind of modern history, last few hundred years happened to be. And then upstairs more, but even interspersed throughout the modern was the alchemy, the alchemists, and what that science entailed. And that is what I do, that is what I am. And alchemy and alchemists were not simply as believed changing lead into gold for financial reasons. This was going into the lead or the heavy and dense parts of ourselves and our world, and finding ways to change, transmute those aspects into a wider, expanded, inclusive way of being, which is why it includes every aspect of Earth, all philosophies and religious beliefs, and includes the stars and the elements and metals and minerals. Everything was considered part and parcel of that. And so in these Ancient Future Wisdom episodes, we have those influences coming together at a point in time for the benefit of humans and their evolutionary process. I've spoken of for many, many years a current collective consciousness theme that seems to run anywhere from a week to 2 weeks or more, depending on how large the aspect is. And clients come in and have kind of similar issues, although very, very individual, very, very different. But the basic core aspect or issue of that kind of runs through the work or the challenges that they're presenting. And there's also a reflection of it in the outer world. Oftentimes I have clients come in very, very upset about what's going on, either politically or in some way in the world, other countries or aspects of our humanity or human species, or whether it's just the state of affairs in the world. And eventually that leads into a very, very personal experience of that in their own life, in their younger years. And as they transmute and as potentially metamorphosize that issue in their own individual, unique way, it has wide-ranging, far-reaching effects in their lineage of family, in their cultural, like their heredity, in their just as a human. It has so many effects. Also, it shows up in some way in which which man interacts with Earth, a distorted way in which we've broken that relationship. And a lot of these result in prejudices out of those fears or angers. I am wearing orange today, as this is Wear Orange Weekend, in protest and voicing my feelings in regard to guns, particularly guns that are considered assault weapons that can have, that can kill in a matter of seconds 50, 100 people. I don't feel that there is any reason in the world, even including war, where these type of weapons are necessary. And it isn't until we all stand up in regard to a particular aspect that it's going to change in the world. We cannot, as I've said so many times, rely on religious leaders, politicians, parents, someone other than ourselves. That's the wonder and the amazement and the power that we have as individuals. And so my invitation to you is to really begin to explore your own prejudices. As I said, I was in this store yesterday, and the owner happens to be Asian, and she was relaying some of the ways in which she's experienced prejudice towards her culture, towards her perceived country of origin, which, it's very, very obvious when it's someone's color or their race to be able to point them out and or act against them. I noticed her getting very tense when two women were coming into the store with hijabs on. And I don't know whether that was her personal or she was just on guard for thievery in general, because she's a small shop, souvenir shop. And we have so many different. She brought up Jewish people, and was relaying that she has a Jewish business partner, but he's not typical of what she believes Jewish people to be. We all have so many prejudices, very subtle ones as well as very obvious ones. There's, again, this week there has been a push in another state to silence teachers from being able to speak about gender and teach children how to explore that area of their lives. Another occurrence this week, someone was speaking at a graduation event and espoused their idea of there only being marriage between a man and a woman. And the university, I believe it was in Ohio, excuse me, people became very up in arms, thank goodness, about this person coming in and espousing their beliefs instead of addressing what was to be the graduation and encouragement for young people to go out in the world and be who they are and follow their dreams. There are prejudices against lifestyle. I know in my very neighborhood, I am surrounded by 3 people who do not agree with the way I live as far as how I maintain my land, the fact that I have a labyrinth in the backyard. They all believe they believe it to be something other than what it is. And there is a lot of energy and judgment and prejudice against what they believe is wrong, different to their lifestyle, different to their way of living. So, as I said, it can be also of class, whether that class is marked like it is in India and different classes are named, or whether it's here in the United States regarding financial affluence or not. We are full of prejudices, all types of them. I have a neighbor who's, we were just chatting, and his prejudice towards those people that have money, came out. It's just really, really fascinating that we each are so similar to one another, and yet we hold these separations and this hierarchy that there is one thing that is better than another. And as long as we keep stating that and living by that there is good and everything else is bad, or that there is only light and everything else is dark and it should be dismissed or gotten rid of. Interestingly, I saw an event that's coming up, and it was entitled Integrating the Shadow, but they said that they're going to have everybody leave their ego at the door. And that creates separation in itself. How can you integrate something that you're rejecting and that you're considering bad? That's that hierarchy. Ego is bad, something else is good. And when we feel that way in any form, it is maintaining separation, it is ingraining separation, it is implying that one thing is superior to another and the other is inferior, whether that's a person, whether it's a culture, whether it's a way of life, as I said, whether it's science. There has been a concerted effort for couple thousand years at this point, if not longer, but at least a couple thousand years, when the particularly the Catholic Church came into play and wanted to control, and therefore knowledge that was outside of what they decided was acceptable was not only rejected but attempted to be destroyed. And that's been going on, as I said, for at least a couple millennia, if not longer. And we continue to do that to this day. Science is put down, it's minimized, it's derided, it's made to be seen as something that breaks down the fabric of society or religious beliefs, when in reality it is an amazing source of freedom for us all. And knowledge is freedom. And the more knowledge we have, the more ability we have to make the choices that are going to allow our world to be that which we want it to be. Now, are there forces that want it to be something very different, want it to be very destructive, or much aligned with the old way of very few people having the power and owning all of the resources? Yes. But what is your choice? What do you want? How do you want your world to be? And the amazing thing is you get to decide, you get to choose. But it does entail changing you individually. And it does entail looking at where the invitation that I'm giving today is to explore where you treat and how you treat anyone or any object, being, aspect of this earth as a thing. I'm going to bring up I mentioned it in a post, but last weekend I was brought to my knees because my neighbor cut down approximately 6 different trees. One of them being a very old, probably at least 50-year-old, 60-foot tree that is one of the anchors of the neighborhood. It's one of the elders of the neighborhood. Certainly one of the elders of this block. And he's not the only one, but it's a good example of someone just getting rid of what they consider to be a thing. That a tree is a thing, a bush is a thing, an animal is a thing. And, while most of those who are attracted to this work probably do not feel like they behave in that way, but how many of you very, very quickly and easily swat a fly or kill a spider or get rid of pests, mice, etc. in your house or in your yard, even down to the weeds? We were, looking at several weeks ago the amazing overgrowth or the explosion of dandelions in everyone's yard during a month that was all about wishing and magic. So there is so much helping us, so much combining that allows us to do this, but it is our responsibility, it is our maturation as a species that is going to determine how this world will be. And to that end, it's very, very interesting that some of the helpers coming this week were very, very definitely, everyone here can see an alignment of 5 different planets. Everyone here meaning, I believe it's visible certainly to the United States and particularly I think on the East Coast, possibly more visible, as well as around the world. An alignment of 5 different planets in the sky that are able to be seen with the naked eye. And that's pretty rare. And so what that signifies is that these are particular planets that represent aspects of our world, aspects of us that are here to help evolve, help explore, help reveal. Excuse me. Those planets are, and as I said, we're here doing this maturation process and taking responsibility, and that's what Saturn is one of the planets, which is actually going to be visible. It's going to be the highest of the planets. They're showing up kind of like at an angle, or as a line, a diagonal line, with Saturn being the highest. And again, representing discipline and maturity and responsibility and stewardship. As excuse me. And the next planet that is in that alignment is Jupiter, and that represents authority. Again, are we going to allow outer authority to decide our lives, our world, or are we going to take that inner authority and stand up for what we believe, vote, get involved, find out what's going on in your township, much less your state and your country? Next planet that is in that alignment is Mars. And Mars is a very, very fiery planet. We need fire for that transmutation, but it also represents war and the violence that can be present in our world like it is now. And we have been a very warlike species, trying to conquer and take and have and own, and thereby be powerful and in the moment comfortable. But that is very much coming forward and for change. We're seeing that with the Ukrainian war. There are other movements taking place. Turkey is planning to go into Syria again. We must know about these to be able to make a choice. Perhaps you do not have that much influence over the country of Turkey, but you do energetically, you do emotionally, you do spiritually. And when you seek inside for how you are warring, which we all do, and transmute that, then there are less threads in that particular aspect of this tapestry or web that creates our reality. And then we have Venus. And Venus is always representing love and the feminine, and we are in the midst of moving into that feminine way of being as a species, rather than the warlike, very masculine, overpowering, controlling, oppressing. And again, that has nothing to do with men per se. It has been the way that we have been exploring this reality up until now. But there's nothing more to explore other than blowing ourselves up. So we're here, again, one of the major planets of this alignment is Mercury, which is a catalyst. It's a quicksilver change that can happen, and we're seeing that with all the revelations, and there's going to be more and more and more revelations of what goes on behind the scenes, behind closed doors, the wheeling and dealing, and how that causes, how that results in our world being the way that we are experiencing it right now. So please take advantage. This alignment of planets, the 5 planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter, and it is going to be visible in the eastern horizon just before sunrise, about 30 minutes before sunrise. So if anyone wants to take advantage of that and get up this weekend, is when it's most prominent. We also had an amazing and unexpected meteor shower, and it was up until the very last moments whether astronomers and cosmologists were able to determine whether we were going to be able to see it or not. And again, that's kind of unheard of. It was depending on how it was positioned through its own debris, which normally we just see the debris, but this was the comet, the meteor was going to be going, no, comet was going to be going through its own debris, and therefore a potential meteor shower, which there was. And that, kind of like, is it going to happen? And that excitement and the newness reflects the adventure, and that this is an opportunity for resetting ourselves. We had April was all about wishing. May was all about dreaming. This is about redesigning and resetting. So you're going to hear about new groups that are coming through Healer's Universe, and as well as the kind of launching of this on June, the solstice event. And it also is interesting that we have the direction of the East participating with us. Excuse me. I'm trying to bring up this card. It's a beautiful image. The direction of the East from our elements, from my elements deck. And the East is all about, and has been, about a new dawn. And we're coming into this new dawn, moving from the old way into the new earth, new way of earth. And it encourages us to go forward without the heaviness and without the anxiety. And that's really difficult to do when our world is very heavy and very anxiety producing. But hold fast to the awareness that this is a process of evolution, and hold fast to the many, many, many different helpers and the catalysts and the sparks and the push, if you will, from so many different aspects of our universe, of our planet, of our multi-existential selves. Another aspect of the East is to speak up in a clear voice, or with a clear voice. And we're having that opportunity right now. We are speaking up about what we want in this country in regard to guns, and that the powers that have held the control of the selling, the advertising, the background checks, all of that is from, again, a very small group, whether it's the NRA and all of those who have benefited from that. This is not a new experience. There have been weapons traders since the beginning of humanity, or certainly civilization. They have sold to both sides. They have benefited more than even the conquerors or winners of the war. And it is our choice, certainly here in this country. We have the freedom, we have the ability to find out what our senators, what our congressmen, what our representatives, even in the township, our governors, what they are doing or not doing in accord with what we want. And we get to choose. They either stay in office because we have no time, effort, energy to be able to explore and find out what's going on, or we do, and we speak up with a clear voice, whether it's in our voting, whether it's in our communities, whether it's even with family and friends. And again, along those lines of this month being about adventure, the East has always represented going into the unknown, or going somewhere new and exotic and that we've never been. And the last, for today at least, there have been many, many different helpers, but I don't have quite enough time to list them all. But one of the beautiful decks that I work with is by Chris Walderer, and this is the card for today, which is a chimera. It is a supposed mythological creature that combines multiple animals at once. I don't know if you can see the head of a lion and that of a ram and a dragon. So it's been depicted in many different ways, but that particular animal represents compromise between opposites. And it does seem, as I mentioned with hierarchy, there's superior and inferior as we see things. And how do we come to a compromise between those within ourselves? How do we come to a compromise within all of the splits we see in our country and in our world today? The United States, and many other countries. Even in the war in Ukraine, it's a very old way of conquering versus the new way of freedom and individual choice. So this is a way to find unity amongst seemingly disharmonious situations or people. The chimera also represents finding a way to bring it all together. And that's what I was referring to earlier about the field, the quantum field, or the actual web in which we exist. That we have the opportunity to design our world personally and globally in the way we wish it to be, so that and within that unfathomable combination of choices, votes, if you will, there will be woven our new reality. So the more people who are sitting in and feeling into and changing themselves to be able to meet the new earth of what I do believe is wanted by all peoples on the planet, no matter their religion, culture, politics, beliefs, etc., is basically freedom from violence, that your life isn't threatened, that you have clean air, clean water, and clean food, healthy food to be able to sustain yourself, and the freedom to have the family or loved ones around you that you choose. Those are very basic, and in my belief, almost just about every human on the planet, some humans are representing or standing in for some very destructive or how would I say it, imploding type of universe, and dark based in that there is much control, much sameness. A great example of that I always give is one of the great examples is the second Thor movie, The Dark World, where there are a group of beings that want this universe to be based in something else entirely. And that is their choice, and that is their freedom, and this is a free will universe, so they are able to choose that and work towards that and receive fulfillment in that, if that is what the majority chooses, or by no choice allows. And that's fine. I have experienced other universes where that is the case, and certainly we see that again in our movies. Doctor Strange, the first one, of course, where there was Dormammu, I think. And that was a universe entirely based in darkness, sameness, control of one being over the entire universe. And although, it seems kind of silly that I'm citing Marvel movies, but these are a reflection of what we're aware of on the deepest levels of our being. Our multi-existential selves know that this 3D reality that we're currently physically present in is only one tiny, tiny, tiny option of so many that are available to us, and that we have lived in and experienced and are here because we chose to participate in an experiment, a project, a different way of doing things, evolving through physicality, all these many aspects at once, which is why it is so intense, which is why it is so fiery, and that fire is allowing for the alchemical transmutation and metamorphosis of our planet. So it's very uplifting. It's very, very exciting. One should be very enthusiastic. Does one also get knocked down? Absolutely, because you're human. But in that knocked down position, to explore and find out the deeper significance to you and what it represents. I was devastated last week after the trees cut down, and a lot of greenery also was removed in his yard, making it very, very difficult for the critters and the raccoons to be able to move and search out food. And I have really had to explore. First, there was the grieving and the mourning, because these were friends of mine. The trees I knew, the birds moved from one to the other and were able to live and eat and have their existence. All that goes into, and the communication underground from tree to tree. I could feel the other trees in the neighborhood, and their loss, their grief. And so after moving through that, and a lot of anger, I will absolutely admit to that, a great deal of human anger came at the needless killing, both of those trees and all the beings that are connected to them, but moreover, certainly what happened the previous days in Uvalde, and what happened again in Oklahoma, what happened again in California, and so many constant killings and death, because life is missing the meaning and the preciousness that it could have and eventually will have when we evolve. And after going through that, I had to again explore within myself my judgments, my prejudices, my hierarchy of superior and inferiority, in regard to this neighbor who has never been nice, on the contrary, has been very disrespectful in many different ways, very uncaring, downright mean. And yet, what is my position going to be? I can stay in that hurt and anger, or, as I've done in many different instances, process through that to find out where I experienced that, even in an entirely different way as a child. But still there was, as clients have been this week, experiencing themselves being treated as a thing, when, parents knowingly make choices that they know are affecting their child and just kind of assume, oh, they'll get over it, oh, they're a kid, they don't know what's going on, that's really not harmful to them, I know best, what have you. There were 2 different clients this week whose parents, one who was working very, very deeply, and yet, with a customer of his that had evoked a great deal of emotion. And sitting in there was the way in which his mother behaved in much the same way towards him and around him. And he was very, very deep in the energetics, and all of a sudden flashed in a very ugly witch with horrible teeth, and he couldn't figure out why. And what was eventually was revealed was that he was experiencing his mother's behavior as ugly, extremely ugly, and that of a witch. And he was able to access those experiences and transmute them to an extent where he is no longer thrown off, because what the customer did really threw him off balance in his life, in his world, in his feelings about and toward himself. And once he transmuted this piece, he came to have ownership once again, and is able to see the ugliness of behavior in the world and choose how he wants to behave, or how he wants to interact with others of that constellation of behaviors. So he changed him radically. Another client who is very, very well aware of the meanness and hurtfulness and conscious and deliberate actions that to this day she's experiencing with her mother. And again, that took her in very, very deeply, and she was able to come back at the end of the session and realize how much she had taken that ugly behavior and in her anger and upset had turned it in and on herself so as not to harm outwardly, and as a result has had an excessive amount of surgeries and illnesses over a period of time, when she was aware, looking back, that she had pushed this purposefully down and in to her body, or down and in her system, which manifested in the body, illnesses, accidents, etc. So there's this wonderful continuum of experiences that, as we go back in sessions and uncover and work through, process, transmute, it literally changes our physicality, changes down to the DNA. And that's very, very exciting. I have, clients who think they feel their body and their system and their emotions, and after going through a period of time in this work, come to say, oh my God, I had no idea how little I was in my body. Oh my gosh, I had no idea how I truly felt deep down inside, and how I was not feeling that. It's miraculous and amazing each and every session, and I sit in such humility and awe and just honor for what my clients do and how they are willing to stand up and be the kind of trailblazers or leaders, or cutting path through the jungle of evolution. And they are working on mastery level soul projects, which are key. They stand in and hold great power as a point behind which many can follow, yes, but also reweaving in such a profound way their individual tapestry as part of the larger tapestry or web that, as I said, it has very, very far-reaching, very expanded results, not to mention in their own lives. So that was a lot today, and I think we're going to just close with that. And I would invite you to just center yourself, and by center yourself I mean find yourself, your body first and foremost. Find your sits bones, really sit deeply and strongly on your chair or your couch. And we're going to sit in for just a few moments this amazing crucible, alchemical crucible that has been created by all that has gone on this week. Personally for you, collectively in our country, on a larger scale in our world, because everything affects everyone. Whether we choose to feel that effect and take it and use it as an opportunity, as a catalyst, as an opening point for our internal transmutation, for the external evolution, is completely individual. And there is no judgment or prejudice or hierarchical decision or judgment whether you choose to do that or not. This is a free will universe, and you can do anything you want. But please explore, feel into, find out what you truly want in the innermost, directly soul connected aspects of you. Not what politicians decide for you, your culture, your religion, your family of origin, but what do you truly want? And the more you transmute the pieces within you that are holding you back from sitting deeply in that desire, in that wishing, in that dreaming, in those choices, will then allow the power of you to choose how you want this world to be. For you do have that power. You do have that right. You do have that ability. You do have that responsibility to a certain extent, for the more you come to know, the more there is an implied opportunity and need to make a choice. Not by overpowering or deciding for and on behalf of others, but by clearly standing in, living, and speaking what is your truth. We have been trained for millennia that to stand up and speak creates danger, potential loss, materially, physically. That is precisely the old way that we are evolving out of. And you are here at this time, knowingly, purposefully, specifically, to take advantage of this myriad of energetics, creating the alchemy, the alchemical opportunity for you to complete or accomplish the soul project that you laid out for yourself. And in so doing, evolve this planet from the old Aquarian way. Nothing wrong with it, nothing bad about it. It was just a way to explore physicality. And we have done so in every way, shape, or form. And now, have the opportunity to redesign the entire basis of existence. For humans, in conjunction with the animals, the insects, the clouds, the waters, everything else on this planet, and more. All of those beings enfolded in are other dimensions, other worlds, other realms, other kingdoms, accessible through and from this very planet. And you, with your very unique connections to those other existences of you, have the potential to not only evolve this reality, this 3D reality, but as well those other existences, worlds, realms, dimensions, kingdoms that you are connected to through your DNA, sometimes referred to as your Akash. For me and this work, they are within the universe of you. All held compactly in this tiny little physical vessel and vehicle of a body. Feel the expansiveness of you. Feel the universe within. Don't see, don't think, don't vision, don't use your third eye, but instead allow yourself to feel your inner verse. Yet anchored deep within your own human experience. So it is down and in and through your body, through your emotional body, through your energetic body, with the help of your wider self and all those non-physical teachers, guides, masters, other yous, conjoined to teach you, guide you, lead you, show you who you truly are. And as always, you are welcome to continue to stay in this beautiful connection in and through yourself for however long you choose, knowing that you will be completely integrated and physicalized to carry on with the rest of your day, evening. Or you can allow your energy field and your wider self to gently and in your own rhythm and pace and way, which you may not actually be familiar with, for so often we end a practice or meditation in other settings by purposefully, consciously bringing ourselves back to a more consensus reality by opening our eyes and moving and all of that, but that may not be your way. So please feel your way. Your energy field, your wider self, they know exactly how to do this to your best advantage, at your rhythm and your pace. And be on the lookout for the information of the solstice event, which will lead into groups of stewardship and working to redesign this reality we live in through the Healer's universe. And as well, if you would like to explore your internal universe and how you can influence what's going on in this world very, very deeply, very, very widely through your own individual work, it would be a privilege. And as always, it is with the greatest of gratitude, honor, and love for your presence here on the planet. Until next time, be well. Bye-bye.